Elon Musk. You hear the name and you probably have a strong opinion. Is he a real-life Tony Stark, out there saving humanity? Or is he maybe the greatest con artist of our time? To get to the bottom of that, we have to ask the trillion-dollar question. How did one person get so much wealth and power, and what does it mean for the rest of us?
So let's just start with the number. We're talking about a net worth that bounces around $250 billion. That is more money than any single person has ever controlled in modern history. But behind that absolutely staggering number, there's a story of two completely different competing realities.
You know, depending on who you talk to, he's either this brilliant innovator pushing all of humanity forward, or he's the best con artist the world has ever seen, a real-life superhero, or a total fraud. So, which one is it?
To figure that out, we have to cut through all the noise, right? All the crazy media coverage, the superhero myth that's been built up around him. And to do that, we have to go way back to an origin story that, well, you've probably never heard it before.
All right, so this part of the story, it doesn't start in Silicon Valley like you might think. No, it starts in apartheid-era South Africa. And it really challenges this whole idea that Musk built his entire empire from absolutely nothing.
So the official line, the story you'll find pretty much everywhere, is that his family on his mom's side moved from Canada to South Africa for, adventure and better weather. It's a simple, clean story. But the truth, according to his own grandfather, is a whole lot darker.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. His own grandfather admitted that the government's racist apartheid policies were what attracted him to the country. This wasn't some minor detail. This was, like, the entire foundation for them being there.
So this is the world Elon Musk was born into. And you can just forget that whole lower to middle income story he sometimes tells. This was immense wealth. His father once said they had so much cash they literally couldn't close their safe. But this insane level of privilege came with an insane level of cruelty.
And this isn't just an outsider's opinion. Musk himself, in this really raw interview with Rolling Stone, basically broke down describing his father as a terrible human being who had done almost every evil thing you could possibly think of. And that combination of extreme wealth and extreme cruelty, it would shape everything that came next.
So you have this upbringing of incredible privilege mixed with incredible pain. How does that shape how you do business? Well, as we're about to see, a very specific pattern starts to pop up over and over again, one that would pretty much define his entire career.
Okay, so take his first company, Zip2. It follows this four-step playbook, almost perfectly. He has the vision. He gets the money. But his own colleagues said his management style was just furious and totally unreasonable. And pretty soon, the board felt like they had no other choice. They had to get him out as CEO.
And then, would you believe it, the exact same thing happens at his next company, PayPal. I mean, this is the stuff of legend, right? His own board stages a coup and fires him as CEO while he's on his honeymoon. And why? They said he was too risky, too emotional, and just completely uncontrollable. For years, though, this whole pattern was kind of hidden from the public eye. To most people, he was this hero, this innovator. And then 2018 happened. And over just a few short months, that mask didn't just slip, it completely shattered.
I mean, it was just one thing after another. First, he lashes out and calls one of the heroes of the Thai cave rescue a pedo guy. Then, it gets crazier. He tweets about taking Tesla private, a tweet the SEC would later call straight-up securities fraud. This wasn't just a bad few months. This was the public finally seeing the kind of behavior his own boards had been trying to deal with for decades.
And all this public drama really put a huge spotlight on a core part of the Musk playbook, making huge promises that just don't happen. You look at this list. Full self-driving is always next year. 1 million robo-taxis that never showed up. The Cybertruck arriving years late at double the price. The grand promises consistently failed to match the reality.
Okay, so this brings us to maybe the most critical part of this whole story. How does a CEO, whose wealth is so tied up in narratives and promises, become something much more powerful? How does he become an oligarch?
I mean, just look at these numbers from 2020. It's wild. Tesla delivered a tiny fraction of the cars the top 10 automakers did, but its value on the stock market was more than all of them put together. It's clear people weren't just investing in a car company. They were investing in the myth of Elon Musk.
And here's the kicker. That myth was built with a lot of our money. The whole self-made billionaire thing just kind of glosses over the more than $50 billion in government contracts, loans, and subsidies.
In fact, his biggest company, SpaceX, was literally saved from going bankrupt by a last-minute deal with NASA.
So what do you do when the media, the very thing that helped build your myth, starts to turn on you? Well, if you're Elon Musk, you don't just complain about the media, you buy it. His $44 billion shopping spree for Twitter was a power move, plain and simple, a way to grab the microphone and control the story himself.
You know, there's actually a word for this kind of power. It's called oligarchy. And it's not just about being rich, as you can see from this definition. It's when that money buys you this unique, concentrated power to basically change the rules to protect yourself, no matter what the rest of us want.
And this quote from one of our sources just nails it, right? It says the problem is that this power wasn't always built on actual, tangible innovation, but on selling the idea of progress through incredible marketing and storytelling. And the hypocrisy just reaches this incredible peak. This is a man whose entire career in America started because he was an undocumented immigrant who was allowed to stay. And today, he uses the massive platform he built to amplify fear about so-called immigrant hordes.
And this all leads us to this huge fundamental challenge to the very idea of democracy, which is captured perfectly in this quote. What is the point of an election when one person's checkbook outweighs the collective will of millions of people?
And that right there is the real trillion-dollar question we started with. When one person's fortune buys them this much influence, what is a vote really worth? It's a question that goes so far beyond just one man. It forces all of us to look at this dangerous mix of extreme wealth, unchecked power, and the very future of democracy itself.